Hello and welcome to another episode of the Family Gamers Podcast. This is episode 402.
Hello everybody, we are super excited to do another one of these things, to have another show, to bring you another list. It's kind of a list. We were asked for more lists.
It's another room to grow.
Okay, and a room to grow is a list of three.
Is a type of list.
Yes. Of three. All right. Well, who is bringing you this list? We are the Family Gamers. As always, I'm your host, Andrew, and I am joined by my lovely and wonderful wife, Anitra.
That's me.
We are going to do room to grow deck building this week. I actually was super surprised that we hadn't done a room to grow for deck building before, but we did some looking and we searched a bunch of times and we hadn't done one. So that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, we did one for engine builders, which is a similar idea, but not the same.
But not the same. So you want to get this thing started with a fact, Anitra? Is that how we do this?
Of course.
All right. So this week, our fact is a direct call out to basically anybody in their like mid to late 30s, maybe 40, who grew up in the US or Canada. So 5 years younger than us, basically. So in the late 90s, early aughts, there was a kids show that came out called The Kids from Room 402. Do you remember this, Anitra?
I mean, it sounds vaguely familiar.
So this was an animated show that was based on the book Gracie Graves and the Kids from Room 402. It was kind of like a kids sitcom, right? Like Hey Arnold is a kids sitcom.
Sure. Recess.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites.
All sorts of goofy school-based adventures that the kids on the show were going through. I pulled it up on YouTube because you can find anything on YouTube.
Sure.
And it looked like Doug. Do you remember Doug?
I do remember Doug.
Yeah, from Nickelodeon. Yeah. Maybe a little bit less polished than Doug. Doug was a pretty, high production value show. But anyway, so like I said, you can find full episodes of The Kids from Room 402 on YouTube. And maybe you can sit there and remember what it was like being 14 years old and having plenty of time to waste watching television. That's my fact.
Well, I, as usual, have a message from our sponsor. Have you ever heard of the planning fallacy? The idea is that most people, when they forecast into the future, make predictions that are unrealistically close to the best case scenario. Instead of blindly planning based on your own judgment, get statistics about how much similar projects have cost other people, then use specific information about your situation to adjust the projection. For example, think about how much college cost for you. How much do you think college will cost in 10 years?
I mean, we went to a private school, so I guess my answer is too much money.
My hope is that we won't pay more for our children to go to a state school than we paid ourselves to go to a private school 20 years ago.
I suppose seeing as our youngest is going into 6th grade, I hope we're not paying for college in 10 years.
We'll see. Well, looking at U.S. News, the average in-state public tuition in 2024 was right around $11,000. But that doesn't include housing, meals, books, etc. But since we're in Massachusetts, we can actually drill down even a little bit more. And if one of our kids wants to go to, say, Worcester State, the tuition there is $8,800. If you have a better estimate of the cost, like that, then you can do a better job of making a realistic plan of how to get to that goal. If you'd like to talk to someone about your goals, remember that you can book a free meeting with First Move at firstmovefinancial.com/familygamers.
All right. Thanks so much to First Move for sponsoring another episode of the Family Gamers Podcast. So, Anitra, let's see, it's been a busy couple of weeks. We sent the boys off to camp, and on the way home, we took a little micro vacation and spent the night at a bed and breakfast and actually got to play some games.
Yeah, we played some games, just you and me, with a lot fewer distractions than we've had around recently.
Yeah, tell me about it. And one of those games, we made a commitment to get a game off of our shelf of opportunity, and that game was Paint the Roses. So this is the game which was released by North Star Games a while ago.
About 4-ish years ago, I think.
And it's been sitting in the shrink in our house. And
for a long time.
Like, we have to play. We've got to get this sorted. So we took out Paint the Roses and played it. Now, you had played this game before, and I knew nothing about it. I knew that on the front it said a cooperative deduction game, and that was it.
I had not played it. I had seen a very quick demo
I see.
From our friend Bruce Vogue when he still worked for North Star.
Yeah. So if you know who Bruce Vogue is, that would roughly set the time for when this game came out.
So I remembered that the game Paint the Roses was cooperative deduction, but not really in the sense that I would immediately think with those words. It's a thing where everyone has their own sort of secret goal, and they're trying to give information to everybody else to let other people figure out what that goal is while you're also trying to figure out another player's secret goal. With more players, you have sort of more information to work with, but also there's a lot more going on that you have to sort through. With just 2 players, it was a really tight back and forth of, okay, I'm going to make my move, and then I have to guess what the goal is in your hand. So I really hope that I've been able to get some information that would help me to guess.
Yeah, so this game is really interesting. So there's 4 colors and 4 shapes. I think the shapes are made out of flowers of different colors, right? So you have the 4 suits from a deck of cards. I mean, this is themed on like Alice in Wonderland and the
Red Queen.
The Red Queen. And so, you've got the card guys and all that stuff. So you're in the garden, right? And you're trying to basically fill up this garden. And it's a hex grid. So on every turn, you draw a tile from the tableau. There's 4 face-up tiles. You put that tile on this hex grid. And then both you and everybody else puts tokens on that tile representing how many times their card's requirements have been fulfilled by the placement of that tile.
That specific tile.
Yes. And so this is really interesting because it felt to me like a cooperative Minesweeper in a sort of a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because you know your card, and so you know when you put a tile down whether or not you're going to be able to clue everybody else at the table. You know what you're going to be able to say or not say, because the not saying might be a piece of information as well. But also based on what you know about other people's cards, other people's goals, you might want to make a decision on a placement to eliminate some of the potential guesses that you might have for one of theirs. Because when you put something down, you have to guess somebody else's card. And so you're really trying to fulfill multiple goals at once, which I think is really interesting about this game.
Yeah. That was the coolest part about the game. I think it's really well structured in the way it works. So there's multiple difficulties of goals, which also helps you to figure out what sort of information you're looking for in the first place. So like we said, there's colors and shapes. The easy goals are just 2 colors next to each other. The medium goals could be 2 colors next to each other or 2 shapes next to each other. And then the hard goals could be a color and a color, a shape and a shape, or a color and a shape. So the harder you get, the more things you have to eliminate, basically, as options.
Right. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I definitely think we're going to hang on to this one and bring it out, possibly even tomorrow night on our game night.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm really interested in playing this with more players to see how that goes. So let's Paint the Roses from North Star Games.
And I think it goes up to 5 players, right? Yeah. So I'd be really interested in this at 4 or 5 players. Not quite on the shelf of opportunity, but definitely one of those games that was all right, we kind of bounced off this and we really should try it again, was Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard.
Yeah, so we talk all the time about Jekyll and Hyde as this incredible 2-player game that we really, really love. And that's true. This is one of those few games where I think we're probably going to wear the cards out and need to buy another copy of the game.
That's Jekyll versus Hyde.
Jekyll versus Hyde.
Yeah.
But Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard is a little bit different. In this game, it's now a cooperative game where you're playing against the board. I mean, there's no board. It's a card game, but you're playing against the deck.
Yeah.
Or you're playing against Scotland Yard. It's not even the deck that you're playing against.
Yeah. You create the deck. That's one of the hardest parts in this, I think, is that Scotland Yard is, an 8-card deck, just like everybody else has an 8-card hand. But you create that 8-card deck because each of the 2 players has been dealt 12 cards, and they have certain restrictions of, okay, if you have this kind of card or this kind of card, it has to go into the Scotland Yard deck.
Which is, fine, I guess, but also, you're giving up the good cards, so what the heck?
Of course. So this has also got sort of a campaign-style progression. It's not a legacy game in any way, but there's a bunch of different scenarios, and the first 3 or 4 scenarios are to try to help you add a few more mechanics on each time. So we got through... it took us a couple of tries still to beat the very first, beginner, here's how you play, stripped down to basic scenario. But then once we got that, we got through the second scenario on the first try. So now that we've kind of wrapped our heads around it more, I can definitely see us playing this more. I don't think I'm ever going to like it as much as I like Jekyll versus Hyde.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. There's something about it that's just like a more friction-like experience. Like, in some ways, this makes me think of Sherlock Solitaire.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity there in that you're working off of randomness that you have to then mitigate somehow. Whereas in Jekyll versus Hyde, it is literally two people facing off against each other. And there's no other outside influence once you have your hand of cards.
Yeah, so I enjoyed this, and I do think we're going to keep playing through this. I think it might replace Sherlock Solitaire in our kind of collection for that style of game, right?
That feel of game. Yeah, maybe.
Game. Yeah, I like Sherlock Solitaire. I just, you've got to limit it somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the list is Tariki. We finished Tariki with the boys. So we're shooting for this review to come out the same day as this podcast. I don't know if that's going to happen. It might be a little aggressive, but we're going to give it our best shot.
But it will be coming out soon, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing I'm going to say about this is it's like a point-and-click adventure in a board game. You have all of these things, and the presence of items kind of gives you a hint as to how you're going to solve puzzles, or even says things like, well, I have this. There's probably going to be a puzzle with something like X, right? And it may happen. It might not, But a really interesting game. You don't have to solve every single puzzle to beat this game.
Correct.
I will say that one of the final puzzles that is necessary to beat the game, I absolutely did not think was going to work at all. And then it did. And I was like, all right, now I have to kind of eat crow in front of the boys. But they were the ones who got to do it, and so they were super stoked about it. There were high fives. It was a good time. This is a hybrid board game from Lucky Duck Games, so Chronicles of Crime, Kids Chronicles, that kind of technology, or what was the Yummy Yummy Monster Tummy? That was
yes.
The other one?
Yes.
So if you're super anti-hybrid board games, that's going to be a problem for you. But this is a mostly resettable, I would say, legacy game. There is a catalog of animals that you are supposed to write in, which I suppose you don't have to. I think if we give this game away, we'll just tell people that, whatever, just ignore that.
They give a resource, I think, in the rule book, but also on the Lucky Duck website to print out a new blank copy of the catalog.
And that's really the only thing that's not reusable. Everything else 100% is. So we've already kind of packed up our copy to get it ready to give to a friend. But we're working on getting that review out. I think we really enjoyed this. I think it was a fun time. I think you mentioned in the review, in the parts that are written already, that if our boys were like 8 and 12 or 8 and 10 instead of, 12 and 14 or whatever, it might have been a little bit more challenging for them. It was a little bit on the easier side, but I do think they had fun.
I think they had fun, but yeah, it's an incredibly forgiving game, which is good when you're playing with somewhat younger kids. For us and our kids, it was kind of like, okay, sure, let's try that. There were some bad things that happened, but none of the bad stuff is all that bad. Like in a story-based game, when the worst thing that happens to you is lose a turn, okay, it's a little annoying, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some things that could have gone worse, and we just didn't experience the negative part of it because we solved the problem fast enough, but we don't really know, so... Yeah. So that's Tariki. I really like that one.
We've also been playing some Hutan, Life in the Rainforest. I've been playing this a bit solo. I've been playing it a bunch actually with Nick Martinelli online on Board Game Arena.
What game did I compare this to?
Grove.
Grove, that's right.
I definitely see the similarities to Grove, and Grove is a solo game that I enjoy a lot. You're doing overlapping of tiles or things to make things more valuable. But in Hutan, you both have more flexibility in how you play stuff, but also more restrictions, if that makes sense. Because you can only overlap flowers in Hutan twice, and then you can never touch them again. The more I play it, the more I'm running into that restriction and saying, oh, I can't quite wrap my head around. I want to overlap flowers exactly twice to maximize my points in this area. But if I overlap these flowers first, then I'm not going to be able to reach these flowers over here, and on it goes. I really enjoyed the puzzle of this game, but I'm not really good at it. Like, I'm okay at it. If I sat down with someone who had never played before, I would smoke them. But Nick is beating me after 2 plays. He's got it better than I do. I think it's a really interesting concept, and it's a really good game, and I'm going to keep playing it, but I'm starting to get a little frustrated that there's some piece of the strategy that I can tell I'm missing and I can't ever figure out what it is that I'm missing until I'm too late in the game to fix it. But I think it's a really good game.
Yeah, I like this game. I find the trees that you have to use to kind of indicate that you've completed certain things. I find it like a little onerous in terms of the number of components to play and put out and all that stuff. I mean, obviously this would be resolved by playing on Board Game Arena or something like that.
There are some issues playing on Board Game Arena, which is there's no undo button.
But that's an issue with everything on Board Game Arena. Oh, just fine, whatever. I should play it there to see if it resolves all of those problems for me. I think there's a really interesting deliberate difficulty with this game because of the way you pick up these flower cards, and sometimes you only have really one place that you can put something. It's kind of pinned off.
Yeah.
And so you have to make the decision to take the lesser cards or to take the, what is that animal?
The pangolin.
The pangolin, right? You have to make the decision to take that so that you can put one flower down. And it feels almost like a waste. Like, this game very much makes you feel like you wish you had a couple more turns to kind of complete your vision.
Yes.
Which I think is a good tension to have in a game.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, what else have we been playing?
Well, I've got a couple that I played without you. I know. I had somewhere to be with both of our boys, but first we had to bring the younger one to a piano lesson. So I was able to sort of recreate some of the board game dates I used to have with Asher, because Asher had to come along to the piano lesson before we went to the other thing. So I was like, don't worry, I brought some games for us to play. And we played Stew, which is a button shy game that I think is becoming one of his favorites. I forget if it's 2-player only or if you can do it with more. It's usually just the two of us playing it. And Stew is kind of a press your luck, kind of a game of chicken with hidden information that you're drawing cards and then deciding whether to put them into the stew pot or mitigate effects of, I think it's like wild animals and a hobo who would otherwise steal things out of the stew pot when it's revealed. At some point, someone on their turn decides instead of putting things into the stew pot, they're going to say, it's time to eat the stew. And it's this point threshold game where if you said it's time to eat the stew and the score is high enough, then you win the round. If the score is not high enough, then the other player wins the round. If you're playing multiple rounds, you are rewarded slightly more for calling it and getting it right than for pushing the other person into calling it wrong. But that's the basic idea, and it's really fun for the two of us to go back and forth and be like, I know what's in there, and I know it's not worth it. Can I keep pushing it and make you say that, it's time to eat when it's actually not? Or, I know what I kept out of the stew pot. It might be worth it to see what's in there. I find it a really fun back and forth with him. We also played one of my favorite button shy games, which is Skulls of Sedlec. In this one, you're drafting from these domino-style cards to put in your little pyramid of skulls. There are at least 5, but with expansions, there could be up to like 8 different kinds of people's skulls, and they all score in different ways depending on their placement in the pyramid and what they're next to and what they're above and what they're below and yada, yada, yada.
With all the expansions to Skulls of Sedlec, it really doesn't feel like a button shy game anymore.
Right. If the very first time I ever played this game was with someone who had what was at the time all the expansions, and instead of being an 18-card game, at that point, it was like a 36 or like 48 card game.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Which is like a standard deck of cards at that point.
All right, next, we did our normal breakfast date, but we brought our daughter with us, because why not? And we played her game, which is a game called Cake Stack. When I say her game, it is literally the game that she made and is kind of loosely working on. This is an 18-card game about making cake.
Yeah. We continue to playtest it. We continue to give her feedback. Sometimes she doesn't like our feedback, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think she feels like the game is done and doesn't really like it when we give feedback at this point because she's done working on it.
Yeah. Well, there's another reason why she thinks it's done, which is she's had this game as a prototype for years, but in her graphic design class this past school year, the capstone project was that they had to make a board game because the teacher is a little bit of a board game nerd. I like him. He's a great guy.
Yep.
And she went up to him. She asked, if I already have a board game I designed, can just making the components for it fulfill this capstone requirement? He's like, yeah, of course. So she made all new cards with good graphic design. She made a couple of other components as sort of little like trophies for getting certain things in the game. And because she put so much work into the graphic design part of it now, she's just like, I just want to be done with it, which I can understand, but it definitely still feels like something is not quite right in this game. Not that it's not fun,
right?
Just a little off.
Yeah, I mean, it also is dependent on what you're looking for in a game. I think you and I have played so many games that we're very particular about the things that we want, and this is a game that has a little bit more luck in it than I think either one of us prefer, which is fine for some people. And I think a lot of our feedback was around how do we mitigate, this potential luck component in this game. And I think that's a decision point for whomever would consider picking up a game like this is, do I like luck in my games or not?
Sure.
All right, last we played more Trio, because every week we're just going to say that we played more Trio.
I mean, it's basically true. It's one of the games that I just grab as long as we have 3 people. It's like, hey, do you want to play a game? Like, I don't know. We've only got a couple minutes. Okay, Trio.
Mm-hmm.
Every time.
I think officially this week was kind of the coming out party for Happy Camper's next game, which I've mentioned before, which is Jungo.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Scout, the game that was the darling, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago. I don't know how long ago it was. A while ago. A game from Oink Games that we have a copy of. It is simpler than Scout, and I'm looking forward to playing it some more. I played it at PAX East last March, whenever PAX East was. I don't even remember. And it's really fun. And it's going to be coming, out to Gen Con, and maybe we'll get a copy for review. I'm not really sure.
Who knows?
Mm-hmm. All right, so that is everything that we've been playing. Kind of a lot of stuff, which is great. Let's go ahead and welcome our newest community members. What do you think?
Let's do that.
All right.
We have a sleepy puppy this week on Facebook.
Know, he's so cute. I will get us started by saying welcome to Chi.
Welcome to Kate.
Welcome to Hannelore.
Welcome to Anchi.
Welcome to Jacqueline.
And welcome to Good Luck Stephen.
We're so glad that you have joined the community. I hope that you all get some good chats in with other folks in the community. We've welcomed you with an adorable dog, just like Anitra said. If you are already in the Family Gamers community, head over there and say hello, and we'll be talking about some games.
Speaking of the community, I think we should also address some back talk.
Oh, you want to jump right into that? I think we can do that. We can manage it.
I think we can handle it.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, we asked you about your family's evergreen games. And using a very loose definition of evergreen.
Very loose, very loose. So obviously we responded immediately with Trio because, well, like I just said, we always play Trio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On Discord, our friend JP says, Ticket to Ride is the game he's played the most consistently. It's like an old familiar blanket we bring out whenever we have a family gathering.
I totally understand that feeling, right? Like, I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
Courtney White also adds Ticket to Ride, and she said Azul is another game that they play a lot in their family, which makes sense.
Yep. Adrian says, 3 of the games that are frequently requested when family comes over are Super Mega Lucky Box, Lucky Numbers, and Las Vegas. I think those are all great choices, and I see a little bit of connection there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Pike, writer for The Family Gamer, says Splendor, which, again, another great option.
Sure.
We're partial to Splendor Duel in our family, but yeah, Splendor is a great game.
Peter also says Ticket to Ride and Dominion, but lately also Card Kingdoms of Valeria, Let's Go to Japan, and Dice Kingdoms of Valeria. And even Lords of Waterdeep. Wow.
That's a lot of games. That's a lot of bigger games, too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is.
Joseph Renninger says Gizmos, which is a great game, and Ticket to Ride are always welcome and enjoyed at their game table.
Kristen goes in a slightly different direction and says, for me, my family evergreen games are not popular hobby games. I've played Skip-Bo and Cribbage since I was a kid, and I adore those games. She goes on a little bit more, and she thinks King of Tokyo is evergreen with her kids.
Sure. By the way, there's nothing wrong with like mainstream games being your evergreen games. Do not be ashamed of that. Ryan Deloney says Telestrations is always a hit in his family.
Oh, and Kristen came back and said Trio is also a good contender for her oldest, and A Gentle Rain. I normally don't think of a solo game as being an evergreen, but if you come back to it over and over again, sure, why not?
I mean, at Christmas time, there's one evergreen in your house. That's a solo evergreen.
Okay.
Sorry. Nick Martinelli gives us a list, as usual. Strike, which is a game that we talked about. Roll for It, another great one. Vegas Dice Game, Dinosaur Tea Party, Flip 7, the new evergreen, and
Maybe.
Carcassonne. I mean, I agree on Flip 7. I don't know if you could call it an evergreen yet. Like, I feel like it just came out.
Is it evergreen if it hasn't even made it through a single winter yet?
I mean, I guess if you've got that gut check for it, then
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But, yeah.
The Joyful Jedi says, Hamster Roll is certainly a favorite. I think its simplicity, quick turns, and the dexterity are what make it easy to get to the table.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a great game. It's fun to watch, even if you're not playing. If you're just like, I'm just not into it right now, but you could still kind of keep an eye on it out of the corner of your eye. Like, it's still fun in that way. Good game.
Yeah.
Rounding out the feedback in the community is Colleen Slaby, who says Seven Wonders Architects, which is the kind of newer, simpler version of Seven Wonders, right? Is that right?
I mean, sorta.
Yeah. Flip 7 again. Slam Witch. Camel Up. I love the pyramid pooping stuff for Camel Up. I think that's great. And Trio. Trio hitting the list again.
I love seeing Slamwich in this. It was never good with our family, but it is a great game.
Well,
it just
our family
didn't
just
work
kind
for
of
us.
hates the dexterity slap.
The slapping games.
Yeah.
Slapping games are not good with our family.
Yeah.
And recognizing that,
We've stopped playing them.
we don't play those games. Yeah.
Yeah. So great choices all around. Do you have
All
more on
around.
Discord?
Nope.
Do we pair it up perfectly?
I think we somehow managed to finish it at the same time.
Wow,
That's
good
great.
job, everybody. We spread it out well. I'm going to have to come up with a really good backtalk question at the end of the show because that was great.
All right. Well, for now, let's take a real quick break, and then we're going to come back with Room to Grow deck building.
All right, sounds good. We'll be right back. And we're back. So we are going to talk about Room to Grow deck building games. I think the easiest thing to do to get started is to talk about deck building. What in the world is deck building?
Ooh. We talked about this all the way back in episode 64.
That was like a long time
It's like
ago.
8 years ago.
That was a long time ago. What did we say? I don't
So-
remember what I wore yesterday, so I don't know what we said back on episode 64.
Thankfully, we have a complete archive of episodes on thefamilygamers.com,
Hey.
so I can tell you what we said. We said the very simple definition of deck builder is you play cards to accumulate currency to buy better cards that will allow you to do more things.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty concise definition of what a deck builder is. In a deck builder, usually everybody starts with pretty much the same deck. And
Yes.
the game is... sometimes there's some luck involved in what happens to be available at certain times, but your goal is to use the abilities that are available to you to generate enough
Stuff.
whatever to buy cards that are often available in some kind of tableau or something like that, and put those often into your discard pile, and then shuffle them back in, and you keep just cycling through this deck. Sometimes you have the opportunity to cull cards out of your deck, so as your deck gets more powerful, there might be weaker cards that you kind of no longer want anymore. So there's two different kinds of deck builders usually. There are deck builders like Ascension, which have a kind of a fixed store from which you can buy things. And then there are other kinds of deck builders where the cards that come out that are potentially available for you to purchase might change or rotate over time.
Yeah.
So that's deck building. Let's also take a step back and revisit Room to Grow. What is the goal of Room to Grow? This is kind of a series that we have. You can go to thefamilygamers.com and search for Room to Grow and see all of our episodes about this topic. So what, Anitra, is the goal of Room to Grow?
So the goal of this series is to bring your kids or your family through a series of games that grow in complexity. Most of the time we take a beginner game, an intermediate game, and an advanced game, and then we throw some honorable mentions on the end because we can't limit it to 3. We just can't.
Yeah, we always talk about something else. It's just the way it goes.
But we do this to offer a plan for growth so players can get comfortable with a specific kind of board game mechanic. All of the games we recommend in these series are always family friendly. As you were mentioning, doing this with deck building was a little bit more challenging than I expected, because even among what we would call pure deck building games, some of the foundational mechanics are actually a little different game to game. Like how you add new cards to your hand. Are you buying them? Is it based on the cards you played this turn? Is it based on the cards you held back this turn? All kinds of things like that. How many cards you can add on a given turn. How you can get rid of cards you don't want.
Or if you can even get rid of them at all.
Yep. And even what the purpose is of building up your deck. A lot of pure deck builders, the purpose is just make the best deck, and there's points in there somewhere. But there are games that are still pretty pure deck building where you're building the deck for a different purpose. To help you do something else.
Building the deck to defeat a common enemy, or you're building the deck to fight with someone else. And so the deck building is a key component, a key mechanic of the game, but the goal of the game is not the good deck.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what we did was we came up with 3 games that we would recommend to learn this style of game more thoroughly. And actually, the first one of these games is one of those games where the goal of the game is not to build the best deck.
You need to build a good deck, but this game is Star Realms Academy.
So there is a link to the review for Star Realms Academy in the show notes to the show. This is a game that we reviewed a couple of months ago. Jeremy Pike wrote the review for this one, and the subtitle to the review is My First Deck Building Game, and that seems about right.
So there are a lot of things that make this a great place to start. Compared to other deck building games, you have a very small hand size in this game, just 3 cards on your turn. There's also extremely minimal reading. You could play Star Realms Academy with a kid who can identify numbers but isn't good at reading at all, because the words are just the names of the cards, not what you do with them. All of the actions and things are shown with icons. Even more importantly, this is a game where some cards give you coins and you're going to use those coins to buy other things, which is true in a lot of deck builders. In Star Realms Academy, you can save those coins from turn to turn. You have a little board in front of you, and you can save coins on it up to, I believe it's 8. And that mitigates the luck factor of, I drew 1 coin this turn. I just have to waste it because there's nothing I can buy for 1 coin.
Yeah, that really kind of underscores one of the other things that we didn't really drive home about deck builders, where often they are very cyclical games where every turn you kind of wipe everything and then start over again with the next turn. And so you're limited to only what you can do within that turn. Star Realms Academy opens that up, and it makes a huge difference in the approachability of the game.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, the purpose of this game is not building your deck. Building your deck is a way to get to the goal. The purpose of the game is one that's really easy for kids to understand. You need to attack your opponent, and you need to bring their health to 0 and protect your own health.
With a name like Star Realms Academy, you may have heard of Star Realms. Star Realms is a more complex deck building game, still published by Wise Wizard Games. Star Realms Academy was the simplified version of this. So we don't actually have Star Realms in our list of Room to Grow games, but there's a fairly straightforward stepping stone there. Star Realms, I mean, it's a significant jump, I would say. Classic Star Realms would be our advanced game or something like that if we were including it in this list. But you always have that kind of an opportunity as well to stay within kind of the intellectual property, right? And start with the easier version and then get a little bit more complicated. It's almost like how we talked about Little Alchemist being its own Room to Grow game.
Yes.
Right? Same idea.
So that is our beginner game, Star Realms Academy, my first deck building game.
Mm-hmm. So our intermediate game is the game that started it all, Dominion. Many, many people love Dominion. Personally, I am of the opinion that the deck building genre has largely moved past Dominion. Within the hobby, I think there's a lot more really just fascinating and interesting things happening with deck building. But foundationally, Donald Vaccarino invented deck building to make the game Dominion. And in the same way that Catan invented victory points, I still think that Dominion is a key game in sort of the legacy of the growth of hobby board games. And it is just really good at deck building. And so, we recommend it as our intermediate game.
Dominion is really straightforward. You have a hand of cards. In Dominion, I believe it's 5. And you play a card from your hand. Hopefully you get to play more than one card. You use currency that come from your current turn, whatever you played out, to be able to buy one new card. That's the basics of the game. Then everything that you had this turn goes into your discard pile, including the card you bought, and you draw new cards from the deck, move on. It ramps up very quickly from there, but the basics are just that very simple cycle. Play a card or more than one card, use the currency from those to buy new and better cards. You'll get opportunities to buy more cards, you'll get opportunities to possibly set cards aside so they're still maybe giving you points, but they're not in your hand anymore. And this game gives you the opportunity to trash cards, cull them from your deck, get some of those low coin values out so that you're pulling the cards that do more for you. Dominion ends when enough piles run out, and then everybody just counts the victory points that are on the cards in your deck and the cards in your hand, and whoever has the most victory points wins.
Dominion does have another aspect to it, which I don't particularly love, which is that this is one of those games that is essentially a side-by-side solo game, especially with the base version of Dominion. There are a lot of expansions to this game, like a lot of expansions to Dominion, and like we kind of joked about with Star Realms Academy and Star Realms, and then Little Alchemist and so on. Simply within all of the expansions for Dominion, you have the opportunity to grow and add complexity and things like that. But in the base game of Dominion, it's just a race, and there's very little player interaction, which I really don't love personally. So if player interaction is something that is important to you in a game where a bunch of people are sitting around a table playing a game ostensibly together, it is something to be mindful of when you think about the game.
Yeah. The other thing that we don't love about Dominion, but which does make it an easier game to learn and understand the deck building genre, is that the market is pretty static. Everything you're going to be able to buy in the game is already out there at the beginning of the game. And the only thing that's going to change is some of the piles are going to run out.
Mm-hmm. So I don't want it to sound like we're knocking Dominion in that way. Again, this is a foundational game that really created an entire genre. And I think it's a very good game to get exposed to deck building and the core of what deck building is. And so that's why it's our intermediate game.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, some of the things that we see as sort of weaknesses to it as experienced gamers are the same things that make it a great place to start if you've never played a deck building game before.
I totally agree with you.
All right, Andrew.
Why do you say it like that?
It's time to move on to our advanced room to grow deck building.
Okay, so for this, I do want to remind everybody that our goal is not to give you the most complicated deck building game in the world or anything like that. Our goal is to get to a point where your family or your group or whatever is playing games that we would consider to be games with some degree of complexity to them that are still great and fun games that fit within this genre. So officially, the title for our advanced games is Legacy Co-op Deck Building Games from the Op.
That's because there are 3 games
so far
that all use the same idea and mechanic here of this co-op deck building with a legacy structure, but they're all fairly different games.
Mm-hmm. So this is Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy, or Toy Story Obstacles and Adventures, or the most recent one, which is Avatar Aang's Destiny. The reason why we put these here as the advanced games in the deck building genre is a couple of different things. So first of all, the decks that each player has are not the same at the beginning of the game.
They're very similar.
A character. Yeah, they're very similar, but everybody is playing a character, and so their decks are a little bit different. This is mitigated a little bit by the fact that it is a cooperative game, so you're not immediately trying to beat anybody down in some kind of a back and forth. But also at the same time, these games are not necessarily easy to play.
Yeah. We have not had great luck with the ones of these that we've spent some time with.
Yeah, so to be clear, we have enjoyed playing them. We just keep losing.
Yeah.
So in these games, you are playing against a common enemy, and everybody is working together to play through kind of a scenario or something like that. In Hogwarts Legacy, you're literally playing through the 7 books, and over time, more characters that are kind of unlocked as you go through the game, and it gets progressively more difficult If I remember correctly, Hogwarts Legacy also doesn't have a lot of culling involved, and so you just kind of end up with these decks with a lot of junk in them, which, is just kind of a bummer. But the reason why this doesn't become something that is too simple is because of all of this added complexity over time, and not too difficult because you are playing together. And so you can kind of flex with how much you want to bend the rules to kind of help one another. Parents might want to kind of come alongside kids if something's a little bit more complicated and explain how those things go. And so with the ability to self-curate the experience a little bit, we felt like it was still an appropriate game to include in here, especially if your kids are, I would say, at least 8 years old. I think these are games that can be very approachable for your entire family. And as you work through understanding how deck building works, especially if you start with a game like a Star Realms Academy or something a little bit simpler, you really get to enjoy the intellectual properties that these games are wrapped around, right? Because the whole point of these games is to experience the story that these games kind of sit on top of. They're not giving you the narrative, but you're kind of expected to come into these games knowing the story. And so when the fights are happening between Harry and Snape or whatever, I don't even know. You know what's happening in the narrative, and you can almost play that out in your mind as you play the game, which is really just the core mechanics of the deck building and of the attacking and defending and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do love how all of these games bring the group together to deck build for a larger purpose. Part of that purpose is the story. I believe all three of these games are basically following the story that we know. So Hogwarts Legacy is the 7 books. Toy Story Obstacles and Adventures is more or less the 3 movies, I think. And Aang's Destiny is basically following the Avatar: The Last Airbender TV show.
Mm-hmm. All of these games have a little twist to them too, so it's not like it's kind of a theme that's pasted on top of, the same basic mechanics. They are all a little bit different.
But the other thing I was going to say is the building for a purpose is not just the story. It's also forcing you to work together and say, oh, well, I have these things, but maybe it makes more sense instead of trying to buy new cards right now. I should attack. And then when it comes to your turn, maybe you can buy new cards. And then maybe when it comes back around to me, I'll have another opportunity or a better opportunity to buy new cards. Because it's all about mitigating the bad stuff, right? It's that kind of cooperative game of you take your turn and then bad stuff happens. And then you take your turn and then more bad stuff happens.
Right.
So all of your deck building is in service of let's reduce the bad stuff. Let's take down the bad guy. And you need a better deck to do that and to get through the game.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to do the thing. Right, so we have our beginner, intermediate, and advanced games, and we'll kind of go over those again in a minute. But let's talk about some other deck building games that are a little bit different. Some of these are very different. Some of them are just a little bit different, and they all explore different aspects of this deck building concept. So we just want to take a couple of minutes to talk about them.
Yes. One of the easiest deck builders we'd played until we tried Star Realms Academy is the Tea Dragon Society card game. If we had not tried Star Realms Academy, this would have been number 1 on the list because it is a very cute game about taking care of very cute dragons, and everyone is trying to build up their decks to take care of their dragons the best. It does have a few issues with it that we don't love. The biggest one is that it requires a lot more reading and ideas of what points mean than would match up with the art and the difficulty of the gameplay. But that's why it's also still a good place to start for someone who can read.
I mean, it is super adorable, I will say that.
It is very, very cute. I also would be remiss if I did not mention Abandon All Artichokes. This is my personal favorite simple deck building game, but it turns the idea of deck building on its head. It is a deck wrecking game. So there are 2 parts of this that are unlike other deck building games. One is that this is a game that is built around the culling part of deck building and less around the building part. There is no currency. You get to simply choose a card from the market at the beginning of your turn. That card goes into your hand. You can play as many cards from your hand as you are able to, and then everything else goes in your discard pile. What you're trying to do is use those cards you're adding to your hand to get rid of artichokes. And if at any time at the end of your turn you draw your new hand and it has no artichokes in it, you win.
It's super fun. It's super fast. It's super easy to understand. Claire likes this game a lot. So that's kind of our, I think that's our metric. Like if Claire actually likes the game, probably pretty good.
Yeah. It takes the idea of currency completely out. It takes the idea of trying to plan out your turn with multiple cards to play. No, whatever's in your hand, that's what you've got to play. Do what you can with it to get rid of artichokes. The only goal is get rid of your artichokes.
Is to abandon all artichokes.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's how it works. We actually had Emma Larkins on the show, and if I remember correctly, I think she said this was a name-first design. She came up with the name for the game, and then decided to build a game around it. Basically, I think she was going through some personal challenge where she was trying to come up with alliterative names for games from A to Z, and the one for A was Abandon All Artichokes, and they took that and she tried to make a game out of it, which is pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it made for a great game.
Mm-hmm. All right, another totally different deck builder is the game Clank. Now, I'm going to start right from the top. I don't like this game. I don't know why I don't like Clank. It just doesn't click for me. And that's okay. We had it for a while. We played it a couple times. It just was not my jam. Clank is a deck builder, but really your goal in this game is to run through the dungeon and collect as much treasure as possible while upgrading your deck to allow you to run through the dungeon and collect more treasure.
Yeah, so this is a deck builder that honestly, truly requires a board for you to run through the dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these other deck building games have a board, but you really could play without one. Clank, you can't. Building your deck is in service of your treasure hunting.
Yeah, I wish I could kind of explain. Like, look, I know people love this game. There's a legacy version of Clank. I think it's kind of cool that whoever gets out of the dungeon first wakes up the dragon, and that's the timer for everyone else to get out, right? Like, we have all these games with like a drawing game where when one person finishes, they flip over the timer, and that's how much time everybody has left. It's very similar to that with Clank, and so there's always this interesting dynamic where you're trying to grab enough treasure that you have the confidence that if people are spending a little bit of extra time in there, they're still not going to have enough treasure to beat your treasure score. So that part of it's really like an interesting thing to me. There's something about the deck building in this where I just can't, I don't know. But this is very much one of those games where, like you said, the deck building is in service of something else. And in this case, that something else isn't even just flat out attacking your opponents. It's just the building up of your pile of treasure. And that's a really unique thing about Clank.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have two more very unique deck building games that we wanted to mention.
Yep.
It probably won't surprise anyone that one of them is Avant-Card. So Avant-Card is a deck building game that feels like it's still in purpose of something, but it's in purpose of being able to play more cards from your hand on your turn, which is not entirely the same idea as like, oh, well, I'm just building my deck to have a better deck. No, I'm building my deck so that on my turn, I can have a massive combo and just be like, oh, and this card lets me draw more cards, and this card lets me play more cards, and, and on and on and on and on.
And your goal in this game is to hit certain thresholds, which are literally just the number of cards that you've played.
Yes.
And when you hit those thresholds, then you get points for those thresholds, and those points are how you win the game. So you're really incentivized to build these almost, rummy-like runs of cards in sequential order or color matching order or something like that.
Well, it's almost Uno style that each card
Uno's the game.
Only depends on the card immediately before it.
Mm-hmm. But also those cards have special abilities that might allow you to do other things. It's just a really interesting game in that way.
Yeah. But I definitely would not recommend it to a beginner in deck building because it does things differently and weirdly.
Yeah. All right, the last game on this list, I guess it's a bag builder, not so much a deck builder. But I feel like it comes from the same place. So the original game here is Quarriors. This is actually a game that Eric Lang was involved in the development of.
Yeah. We actually mentioned this one all the way back in episode 64 when we talked about what a deck builder is.
Well, we used to have it.
Yes.
So we've since moved on from this game, but Quarriors is really interesting. At the beginning of a game of Quarriors, you set out these cards and you put some dice on them, and the dice are different kind of levels of, so when you roll the dice, they give you different abilities or powers or whatever, and those abilities and powers or whatever are based on the relative card strengths of the things that you have built up and purchased, right? So on your turn, you roll a certain number of dice, and those are going to give you currency that you can then use to buy better cards or do things like that. This was expanded into something called Dice Masters. There's a Marvel Dice Masters and a DC Dice Masters, and these really become these games where you are trying to build up your bag so that you can have more powerful characters characters being dice, that you can then turn around and attack other players with and eventually whittle down your opponents and win. But you also can't just attack all the time because you have to get more powerful stuff during the process. And so there's this constant kind of back and forth, like a lot of the deck building style games where attacking is a key part of it, like Ascension or something like that. And it's a different way of doing it. It adds some randomization into this, which is a little bit different than a lot of deck builders that otherwise would be very similar to a Warriors or a Dice Masters. So it's really interesting in that way.
All right, so as a quick review, now that we've gone through our list of all of our honorable mentions and deck builders we think are cool and you should check out, but our room to grow deck builders are Star Realms Academy for beginners. If you've never played a deck building game or you're trying to introduce them to younger kids, start with Star Realms Academy. Our intermediate game is Dominion. It's a very straightforward deck building game. You see everything that you can do from the very beginning of the game, which can help people to learn more of the strategies involved with deck building. Does it make sense to buy this very expensive thing, or should I buy cheap things and fill up my deck with cheap things that are okay, rather than hope against hope that I can get this one really expensive thing that would be awesome?
Mm-hmm.
And then for advanced, we recommend the Legacy or Campaign co-op deck building games from the Op, of which there are several. By the time you listen to this podcast, hello from the past to the future, there may be even more. But we do really like the three that are currently available: Hogwarts Legacy, Toy Story Obstacles and Adventures, and Avatar Aang's Destiny, because you're not starting with the same decks as everybody else, and you're working together to advance the story, to mitigate the bad stuff, and to open up more boxes and do even more stuff.
All right, Anisha, I think you pretty much nailed it.
Thank you.
So that leads us to our backtalk question. So, I guess the easy question here is like, what's your favorite deck builder? But I wanted to do something different, right? I didn't want to cop out again.
Good.
So here is our backtalk question for this week. Since we're talking about mechanics, my question is, what mechanic out there do you either struggle with or don't like? So, maybe you're an absolute killer worker placement gamer, but you are just awful with deck building. Or maybe action selection is something you can't quite figure out, or you just don't like it, or something like that. So the question is, what mechanic do you either struggle with or don't like? And do you care to get better, or are you just happy saying, you know what, that's a whole genre of games that I'm never going to play because either I just am terrible at them or just don't like them? So that's our question this week.
I think that's great. I think we're going to hear a lot of dexterity and a lot of memory games, the stuff that us grown-ups struggle with a lot.
Sure. Okay. All right. So I guess, Anitra, now the question is, where can people go to submit their answers to the backtalk question?
Well, you can check us out on the Family Tabletop community on Discord. There's a link to that in the show notes.
Or you can go to thefamilygamers.com/Discord.
Yes. And there will be a backtalk post in our Facebook community. Go to thefamilygamers.com/community, or check out the show notes. Guys, I put a lot of effort into these. There's lots of links here. And if you're curious about any of the games that we talked about, want to know more, want to find that old podcast, all of that is in the show notes and linked to the relevant material.
You guys, Anitra show notes are top notch.
So you can find all this stuff on thefamilygamers.com. But you can also find us on social media, right, Andrew?
You can. You can find us at Family Gamers AA for Andrew and Anitra on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, pretty much everywhere.
Most of the places, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No Pinterest.
Blue Sky. We're on Blue Sky.
No Pinterest, though.
Yep. No Pinterest. No, can't do Pinterest. I am not Pinterested in Pinterest.
You can also email us.
Andrew at thefamilygamers.com.
Anitra at thefamilygamers.com.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show, tell your friends about the show, and leave us a review at Apple Podcast or whatever your podcast subscription source is. You can also find us on Amazon Music, on TuneIn, on Spotify, on YouTube Music. You can even ask your smart speaker to play the Family Gamers podcast.
As always, the Family Gamers is sponsored by First Move Financial. You should go to firstmovefinancial.com/familygamers, because while you're there, you can learn how the team at First Move Financial can help you pile up the victory points in real life.
We all like victory points. I like victory points. You like victory points?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's going to be the show this week. I hope that you are excited to play some deck builders. I'm kind of like looking at our shelves, thinking about what deck builders we still have around, and maybe we'll try one out the next couple of weeks. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, until then, everybody,
Play games with your kids.